This is a film study look at Marlon Humphrey's historic 2024 season. I use that phrase or that word because really he made so many game changing plays. He swung the course of the Ravens season at least twice, if not three or four times. This video is going to focus on things outside of or independent of those plays, however, just to give you an illustration of the consistency with which he played at a high level independent of the six interceptions or the critical force fumble against the Bengals at home in Week 10. If you recall, when Cincinnati has the football, a 21-7 lead, in fact, halfway through the second quarter, a real chance to take control and put some separation between them and the Ravens. These are plays I think that show his recognition, first of all, his burst, awareness, and versatility, primarily as a nickel or a slot corner. It is truly a wide range of impact that he has. A guy who can go from playing outside corner on one snap to playing nickel or slot corner on the next. Opportunity to look at him as a blitzer here, lined up in the nickel position, top side of the screen at home against the Eagles. Blitzing off the edge, and it's his ability to redirect against physical contact. Now, I think Roquan makes a fantastic play here. Honestly, I think it's a pick stunt on the inside from him. We will get the end zone angle of it, but what I like about this one from a Humphrey standpoint is how he's able to blitz against the tight end, who was brought in for pass pro in a joker set. Jokers meaning one running back to the right of the quarterback and one to the left. In this case, one of those players that was circled happens to be a tight end. So Humphrey blitzing off the edge and then getting upfield, Hurts stepping up and then jumping out to the right side. Marlon able to spin back against his momentum. Just gives you an idea of his athleticism, number one, and his willingness to take on blocks and get to the football. I think as Stacy and a couple of other people in our Ravens Discord have talked about many times, Marlon played linebacker in high school, and you can kind of see that style of play at times in his block destruction. Here's an example. Spinning off of that tight end to peel back and get involved with Roquan Smith on the sack on Jalen Hurts. This is during that period of time where the Ravens defense was really swarming against Philadelphia. 4 stops on the opening 4 possessions, and I think 6 stops on the first 8 drives as well. Week 17 at home, crucial play here that ends up being a pick six, his only pick six for 2024. It's a 2nd and 7, and the Steelers have gone 12 personnel. I love how the Ravens play this with Ojabo and Marlon Humphrey. And I'm going to talk about this a couple of plays in a row here. The integration or coordination of Marlon at the nickel position and an outside linebacker to his side. So as Ojabo jams the outside tight end, you can see that Marlon has an opportunity to now get his eyes in the backfield. Because that tight end has been slowed up, his release has been impeded. No other receiver has their release impeded at all for various reasons, part of the scheme. Marlon's able to get his eyes to the inside, recognize that it's boot, and okay, now Marlon, can release the quarterback to Ojabo, and then I'll take over the tight end. They're just basically playing fast break defense and to use a basketball analogy, whether he's showing the ball to Ojabo or to the Steelers or not. It was a critical play at that juncture. The Steelers with the football, only down 7, really changed the course of the game and locked up the AFC North at that point. The thing that kind of appeared obvious during the season and is even more so now in watching some of the film, he's just consistently there at the point of attack, either making plays, covering, being disruptive with receivers, hands-on. He is the guy in the Ravens defense that gets hands-on receivers, collisions them. It's really not a stretch to say that 12-5 in 2024 could have been 11-6 or maybe even only 10-7. If Marlon Humphrey didn't make at least 3 game-changing plays. Another example of the integration between Marlon at the nickel position and an outside linebacker or edge defender. In this case, it's Tavius Robinson. Wildcard round, 1st and 10. I think it's a second quarter play with Justin Fields at quarterback. So Tavius Robinson and Marlon are there lined up next to each other. It really kind of ends up looking like a base 3-4 with Marlon and David Ojabo being the 2 outside linebackers. Of course, Marlon's not. He's a nickel. He's lined up over the receiver. I think it's Skowronek. And when Skowronek steps down to block on the edge, in this case Tavius Robinson, then Marlon, again, releases the receiver, and now he's totally switched from the reaction that I just showed on the previous play, where Ojabo jammed the tight end initially. and then Marlon waited to cover it once he recognized the boot. Here he's got the exact opposite or inverse reaction. Because the receiver that he was responsible for, Skoranek, has stepped down to block, Marlon leaves him and goes now great, if you ask me, cover up by everyone on the back end from the standpoint of covering the receivers, the stand-ups, Ardarius on Washington, Washington on Washington there, and then Roquan is going to help take over Skoranek once Marlon decides to go. That's the thing that is there with Marlon Humphrey compared to it's one of the reasons why I'm comfortable comparing him to Devon Witherspoon and vice versa, is because they both have that effort. Let's go, meaning go downhill right now and go attack, and we're either going to make a play or we're not. And in Marlon's case, at least in 2024, it worked out in the Ravens' favor. Another thing that I want to cover here or try to highlight is Marlon's ability to reorient or redirect, I should say, to the football during the play. Basically, adapt and release his receiver. In this case, it's going to be George Pickens. The coverage quality was all there, right? The depth, or should I say width of his coverage, whether it was man, zone, or match coverages. He's very good at each. I know Madden has him labeled as a man, press man, corner. I think he's equally adept at all of those things. He's so good at times, in my opinion, against zone that he almost appears to be playing or waiting on quarterbacks, somewhat like Marcus Peters used to before he suffered his injury in 2021. Anyway, let's look at a play where he redirects in the middle of the play, and I think him and Roquan get credit for a tackle that ends up being extremely violent. I didn't realize I was going to use so much Steelers film in this video, but he did make some incredible plays against Pittsburgh and some that kind of went underrated. So he's man on Pickens here. This is in the wild card game. Warren is going to cross the quarterback's face and then release out into the right side flats. Now Marlon's covering Pickens and kind of forcing him, funneling him underneath, and then Roquan makes sure to make impact with his hand and then step underneath to be able to get to Warren, which is the target on the play. Now, Warren kind of breaks the tackle of Roquan. I mean, I think Roquan's bringing him down. But watch Marlon's finish here. We got the all-22 angle, so, we're a little bit far away. But he's guarding Pickens. Recognizes that the ball was thrown here because he's pretty much, him and Roquan, the combination, has taken Pickens out of his route. And then the finish here on Warren. I didn't realize this was as violent as it was. I wanted to see the end zone angle. I just couldn't find it at this point. But you can kind of see Warren's body kind of get shocked. Short completion on the play that, really Pittsburgh paid the price for. 2 plays against the Bills covering Khalil Shakir, who the Ravens, I thought, really limited in 2024, other than the big play in Week 4 where Josh Allen was able to scramble outside the pocket and find Shakir for a 48-yard gain. Snag flat concept. And this is what I like about Marlon. When he has a read, he's gone. He sees it. There is no, at least in 2024, no hesitation. Let me go ahead and get here. And again, playing at the nickel position, if you will, because we're really in a dime because we've got Roquan and Kyle Hamilton on as the dime linebacker, along with 2 other safeties in the form of Ardarius and Marcus Williams. So it's a dime setup, but Marlon's still playing nickel, referring to the nickel as the defensive back to the field, lined up over the number 2 or slot receiver. And in this case, it's Shakir on a little flat concept with the snag. And Josh Allen getting rid of the ball really quick. Another one of the reasons why, we really couldn't get to him at times in 2024 because he just tries to get rid of the ball so fast, according to the read. I thought Marlon did a great job. The Ravens overall did a great job against Shakir, kind of limiting him because he's really a high percentage receiver, at least over the last 2 years. 3rd and 2, same game against the Bills, Week 4 at home. And it's a man beater, if you will. So Shakir is running the orange route, and Marlon's going to get the pass defense. Secondary to that, you have this kind of later developing dig or deeper in concept. Allen throwing the ball. He's kind of got to throw it a little bit around Roquan. I don't have the end zone angle for this one. My apologies for that. But Marlon going underneath to dig that out of there, get a pass defense. This is kind of what you got when you were trying to get completions against Marlon in 2024. You're talking about a guy who understands the concepts, understands the coverage, I should say, and where you're going to have to throw the football in order to beat him on this play. And in this case, it's a 3rd and 2 where we get a win and get a stop. Some more snaps against the Steelers here. First and 10, back into the wild card round. Marlon again lined up at the nickel position with Wiggins and Stevens at outside. Very similar concept here, except it's a little bit of a lower drag. Some people call it a shallow cross by the inside receiver, the number 2. Marlon all over the guy, and you get another example of an inside linebacker kind of impeding the route just enough. He's inside of 5 yards. He could get a bigger piece of this receiver if he wanted to. Talking about Malik Harrison here, he could actually redirect him with a little bit more force. But in this case, steps underneath, and him and Marlon basically sandwich him. Great example of team defense, if you ask me, and understanding how to play it from the inside linebacker position. We got everybody else covered up, man here. So we're talking about man free or cover 1. And then the ball is thrown over there. There's really nowhere for the ball to go. Marlon in great coverage relationship, like he was pretty much throughout 2024. We used to call guys like Marlon Humphrey, we would call them duct tape, because in a given week, depending on a player being out or injured, you could stick that player at any position, outside corner, nickel. We even had a situation in high school where we took a corner one week and turned him into an outside linebacker because we had a player return to full health, and we felt like we had to get that guy on the field. Marlon Humphrey reminds me of someone that you would refer to as duct tape. He's got the understanding in the moment during the play to do whatever needs to be done, particularly when he's lined up at the nickel or slot corner position. I think this is the second quarter of the Ravens wild card win against the Steelers. It's a first and 10. The first play of the drive, in fact, and the Steelers are going to go to a flea flicker. Jalen Warren pitches it back. Were it not for Marlon being able to recognize this and shed Brent Skowronek and disrupt Russell Wilson throwing the football, he may have an opportunity to try to throw this thing down the left sideline with Brandon Stevens locked up in coverage here. Stevens does actually redirect and peel off there because he's fed that receiver into the safety. What I mean by that is he's fed this receiver into the safety such that Stevens could go and redirect back to this vertical, this wheel concept here. Hopefully I said it in a way that makes sense. Number 1 and number 2, all the different color lines didn't get on your nerves. But in any case, back to Marlon. Great recognition in the moment, in the middle of the play. Instinctive football player, if you ask me. It's a great situation for the Ravens, for Zach Orr, to be able to put Marlon at nickel almost exclusively in 2025, since we now have Nate Wiggins, Awuzie, and Jair Alexander to utilize at outside corner. Also really is going to help the safety depth, if you ask me, such that we won't have to slide Kyle Hamilton down to the nickel position as often, unless that's what we want to do on a particular snap.